Hi, everybody. Nice to see you. I'm going to keep my background very brief because I want to learn more about Matt and Roxy and give you the opportunity to. Matt and Roxy Wooden Wave have been working with us for several months now to prepare a mural that is part of the Joyful Return project going on at the museum. The project is called Joyful Return Reveal. And the title of Matt and Roxy's mural is Crossing Currents, which I'm sure they'll explain more what the significance of that is. The mural is currently in a state of partially being revealed. It's going to be revealed during events that we're having once every month through November. So you can go in and you can get a glimpse of it now. And keep coming back to the museum because more and more of it will be revealed over time. And I'm really excited for that. I know that Matt and Roxy are also going to talk about, but in case you want to see one of their full murals before ours is completely revealed, we're also very lucky here in Honolulu that they have another mural that's on display at the Bishop Museum right now. So you can also go see that as well. So we are blessed with multiple opportunities to get to see murals by Wooden Wave right now. And of course, things that are around town too. So with that, I won't ask too many questions of Matt and Roxy. I'll kind of let them lead the tour. But guys, I'm sure that everybody would be really interested to know. You're both born and raised in Hawaii. I'm sure people would like to start by finding out how you became muralists and how the two of you went from being two separate muralists to being Wooden Wave together. I think that'd be a great place to start.
Sure.
Yeah, I agree.
Sounds good. Well, so we're a husband and wife team, and we actually met here at the University of Hawaii. We both separately went to different schools after high school. I went to Oregon State, and then he went to Loyola Marymount in California. But both of us ended up back at UH. We didn't know each other. I'm from Maui. He's from here. And but we met in a painting class at UH. And that's always one of the questions is like, how do you start doing collaborative work? I think it starts for us was because it's like classmates, even in high school, like when you all have projects that are due, right? Everybody's staying up and studying later, especially in college, you have like study groups or everyone for art, you're all in the workshop late at night working on the deadline. And sometimes you're helping each other do stuff. And so once we started dating in college, we were always up late helping each other with projects and working collaboratively, like bouncing ideas off of each other, working in that way. So already even in our separate kind of art practices, a lot of our work was informed or just helped by each other. So that it kind of started out that way. Do you want to add in anything about like how that kind of started? Or?
That's a pretty good summation of it. I think we found out pretty quickly that we work well together is the gist of it. It's just not the case for everyone, which is fine as well. We're all different.
I think timeline to make it so it doesn't take up the whole time. Is just we started printing t-shirts with our images together in college and just selling it at like the college, holiday print sale, that kind of thing. And then
printing days.
And then that's the first time that we were forced to kind of make a name for our collective. And back then it was called Verse, but we wanted to have a line of shirts that had the emphasis on the art. So it was one of our line drawings on the front and no big like logo or phrase. We didn't want just like a brand and different fonts on every shirt or something like that. We wanted it to be about the art. But that actually grew pretty quickly, and we had different retail accounts across different islands here in Hawaii, also in New York, and online sales and all that kind of stuff. But then we realized, wait, do we want to be a clothing company or do we want to be artists and just maybe get hired by a clothing company to do some art? So by that time, we'd already started doing paintings together and having other opportunities in kind of like the freelance art world. So we put the shirts aside, but over the years of developing that company, we'd figured out a style that was really cohesive with our interests, as far as we were both surfers. We both love like the kind of outdoor nature lifestyle of Hawaii. And so molding that into kind of a different business that wasn't apparel was pretty easy for us because we kind of worked out the logistics of having to work with another person and kind of giving up in a way like your individual art.
Yeah, because we're actually quite different in our skill sets as artists. I specialize in the draftsmanship and drawing. I love sketching and perspective and figurative drawing. And then Roxy's more of a painter's painter. She's very color centric. She has really good, like, I'm super detail oriented when it comes to the drawings. I get really like caught up in this minutia, and Roxy's good at like maintaining
bigger
picture focus, right? So those are, when I say we have different strengths and they complement each other, that's for sure is what makes it doable. And in no way are we like the same in terms of how we do our skills, well, what our skills are. So
but we've been working together for almost 15 years, so it's taken a while to figure all those things out.
Yeah,
it definitely didn't happen overnight. Right, let's say that.
It's always, every mural, every project brings different challenges too. So there's always, that's the thing that's beautiful about art, is you always are problem solving. So we just work through it.
And I think we come from varied backgrounds too. I actually come from more of a sculptural background. So when he met me, I was a glass blower at UH. So I was blowing glass, welding sheet steel.
Yeah, you guys ceramics. Are always so dirty.
we're like in the floor level of the university where everything's
cargo pants,
lots of
headbands,
oil and things going on. But
now I look like the glass blower.
Yeah, the third floor was everyone clean, like graphic design.
Yeah, he was a printmaker.
He was a printmaker.
Anyways.
But I actually changed over to do drawing and painting as my major, just to force myself to become better at that skill, because I figured it would be useful in kind of depicting. Once you have the skill sets for sculpture, I didn't feel like I needed the theoretical part of it as much, but I just wanted to build another skill set to be able to kind of make physical ideas. But yeah, we started doing murals together in 2013. So we weren't separate muralists before we started doing them together.
Yeah.
That's a perfect segue into my next question, which is how did you guys start to do murals? And could you talk about some of the, I mean, it's a leap from doing paintings and prints and graphic design into doing large scale paintings on whole buildings. How did that start? And how do you become a muralist? How do you find being a muralist different from the other kinds of art that you were doing, like t-shirt design and sculpture and sheet metal and things like that?
Right. So we had started doing paintings of tree houses, which is one of the things that we're kind of known for, as you'll see images of. And we had been very active in the local arts community, doing different shows, both kind of like private shows, but also museum things and just kind of live art events around town. First Friday in Chinatown. So, and then because we'd come from the university system, we knew all the kind of like academic sides of doing shows with kind of like the university connections. So we kind of knew a lot of people in town, but one of the people that we had just recently met was Jasper Wong of the Powwow Mural Festival.
Right.
And so we had just become an acquaintance of his. I'd volunteered at Estria's graffiti battle, and then I had also volunteered at, I believe, the second Powwow Mural
Festival. Museum as well.
That was the graffiti battle was on the lawn of the art school. Yeah, and so I was just volunteering my time with kind of these street art events because I just really appreciated the work that they do, and just kind of like the liveliness of that scene coming from kind of the fine arts background. So through the volunteering is how we met Jasper, and then we would just see him at different art events. He came to a couple of different shows that we were part of, and we had done large scale paintings, but definitely not a wall. But he invited us to paint a wall as part of the 2013 Powwow Mural Festival, and that was our first mural. So we're big advocates of saying yes before you feel ready and knowing that you'll just figure it out. And so that's what we did. We said yes, and we somehow figured out how to paint on the side of that wall, and it was really
so
fun.
neither one of you came from a street art background at all before you started to get involved with Jasper and Powwow then.
Correct.
Yeah, that's an interesting point because the street art has become such a diverse community, entailing both graffiti, both music, both like it got such a large like family of work. And yeah, we definitely came from, I would say, more of the illustrative side, and then we found our work just getting larger and larger on walls, and that was our entrance into that world.
Yeah, and then I think our second wall after that was the side of Kokua Market off of University. So we painted a treehouse community on the side of that wall. We have a question in the comments whether we have a powwow mural up right now. We do. Yes. If you look at the parking structure of the Ward Consolidated Movie Theaters on the back, which is right, sharing that little back street with Whole Foods, in that alley, there's, I think, 4 or 5 really large murals there. So ours is a treehouse in the shape of a boombox, and we'll show you a photo of that. Yeah. So if you're coming down the parking structure ramp of Whole Foods, it's going to be right in front of you when you meet the street. And then we also have done mural festivals in different states. So we have a powwow mural in Worcester, Massachusetts. That was from a powwow festival there. San Jose, California, Washington, DC. Yeah. They just, it was on a roll-up door. They just got replaced. Oh, yeah, but we did do powwow DC. Yeah. So we have murals in different states as well.
And Bob, also just, I'm sure Matt and Roxy will get to it in a little bit, but there is the powwow, the first 10 years exhibition that's at the Bishop Museum right now. So you can get a really nice overview of a lot of different things, including one of their murals. You mentioned your early depictions, your early murals doing tree houses. That might make for a really good segue to maybe show the group some examples of some of the tree houses you've done, and talk a little bit about how you started to develop that theme and the place that it holds in your work.
All right, that sounds great. I'm going to share my screen, and then I can go to presentation mode, and then that way we can show you some images, which is always what's the best part about looking at art is the fun color and more fun to look at than even to talk about, but we can do both. So what you're looking at here is actually the mural that's on the side of the Ward Consolidated parking structure. So there's the boombox in the shape of, or the treehouse in the shape of the boombox with those bright colors under there. And then you actually see a little figure, and that's our son on the bottom there.
For scale.
For scale. There he is. So we work under the name Wooden Wave, and so we called this one Art, Murals, and Creative Shenanigans because we do other creative fun things. And let's see, the clicker's been having a bit of a sticking. I don't know. It won't let me advance.
You go up and down.
We thought we'd figured this out earlier. Oh, there we go. Now it jumped.
Ooh. Okay. If you do the double finger.
Whoa. Okay. There we go.
Is it working?
So
okay.
Actually, so we had been talking about the mural that's at the museum right now, and this is it here. So maybe we want to start with this one just to give context to what you'll see if you visit.
Sure, absolutely. By all means. Okay. Yep, that's great.
All right, guys.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, so this one we painted here actually in our home in a new house that we're actually building right now, which is a big DIY project. But this is 8 feet tall by 28 feet long. And what's great about this one is that it's interactive. So if you go to the museum, you can actually take a piece of the black vinyl that you can see all these shapes cut out with here. And we actually have to give props to the museum team because they're the ones that cut all those beautiful shapes of vinyl. Yep. And that I think is a really cool collaboration actually with the museum because it lends so much to the experience. You know, it would be different if those shapes were all squares or all circles. You know, it's a very strong visual point of the
it's a collaboration in that way.
Yeah, so that's really cool.
And the way I really love that there's a separation of the vinyl from each other so that there's a hint at the color that's behind this mural, because this mural is super colorful. It's got a transitional kind of green, well, we have like a Mauka region on the right to a Makai region on the left. So it kind of moves from the green scheme to the blue scheme. And in between, there's like some oranges. And so it's cool to be able to see a hint of that.
Mm-hmm. And if you see, oh, is it not letting us go?
Try that.
Whoop.
That's so weird that I'm going to have to use my finger to advance it.
Whoop.
Okay,
That
sorry
works.
guys. All right.
So you can see this was at, I believe, the second Fresh Family, Free Family Sunday.
Yeah.
So you can see some kids peeling off little pieces here and revealing the color. So it's really nice that it's an installation that changes over time. And so guests can make an appointment or a reservation to come and take a piece of it off. And
okay, we'll go on.
And then just a different view of it, just
Yeah.
to see the different kind of shapes and the colors that are being revealed. And then to give you an idea of what might be behind this, we're actually going to show images from our kind of more colorful, abstract, Hawaiian infused style. We have two styles that we generally work in. So we'll show you one, and then we'll show you the treehouse one after that.
Roxy, before we jump to the different styles, could you just talk a little bit? I know that people can't see the full mural yet, but talk a little bit about the title, Crossing Currents, and what the what the message is that you're conveying with the mural.
Yes, definitely. So Crossing Currents, we were really thrilled with the idea of placing this mural in a place that was sort of a transitional space from the different wings in the museum, and also the idea of art and culture, you know, moving through different like waves of immigration, of interaction, of societal mixing. And it's just a really cool way to kind of see how like art influences the local cultures. It influences the way we perceive the world around us. And one of the challenges that we took on with this was to sort of find inspiration in some of the different wings of the museum. There were, you know, on this side of the museum, we've got a lot of Asian art. You've got art from India. You've got art from Indonesia, China, and Japan. And going through that museum, we saw that part of the museum. We saw a lot of different symbols that we could kind of see parallels with even Hawaiian iconography. And so that's something that you'll see with our kind of our Hawaiian style paintings, is we're drawing on and building off of some of the traditional uhi designs that Hawaiian culture will use. And some of those symbols I was really interested to see showing up in, for example, like ancient Indian sculpture, or in the Islamic wing, which was beautiful for its pattern usage. I saw a lot of really awesome and intricate patterning. And
I think it's almost like when you're in the museum, it feels like you're getting caught up in the currents of everything you're seeing, you know. And that's one of the things that we did before we started painting this, is we just kind of came and had just a pleasant day at the museum, where we went to the cafe, had a little snack, walked around, really just kind of absorbed kind of the colors, the patterns, and just tried to kind of get a feel of what we wanted to infuse into our work, into this mural, and how to kind of touch upon the different things that we saw, but interpret them in our own way. And just kind of thinking about the world and how the intersections are physical, but then also intellectual, artistic, just all the ways in which all these kind of cross currents happen.
Yeah, and so specifically with the cross current idea, once this mural gets a little more revealed, you'll kind of see how we are thinking of currents, whether they're wind currents, whether they're ocean currents. And a lot of our work, when it's in the Hawaiian vein, or even with the tree houses, it's very water centric. In Hawaiian culture, we think of vai vai as the concept of wealth, which just literally means lots of water. And so water oftentimes is central to a theme of our work, in that there's movement of water between Ahupua'a, there's movement of water from Mauka regions to Makai regions, and that's a healthy system. So the same thing can be said about art, the same thing can be said about, you know, the people and stuff like that. So anyways, yeah, let's
Well, just to kind of finish that off,
go ahead, yeah.
Thinking about wealth, right? If you think of people who live in the Ahupua'a system, right? It's like you need the rain to come down and nourish your kalo fields and anything that's growing in your valleys.
Right.
And then that feeds to the fish ponds where you have your fish. And then if you have abundant sea life in the ocean, right? All of that is based around this concept of water. So you can see why water is this idea of wealth.
Yeah, you know, actually touching on that, I recently heard about this concept of the Ahupua'a system we kind of know about, and that's the idea that there's this division where the water comes down from the mountains to the ocean. But sometimes water moves across different Ahupua'a land divisions. And that's important to understand, like in terms of water rights, in terms of like how important it is that we malama the water upstream, because it's moving downstream. And sometimes it's leaving our areas and going to other areas. It could be going into other countries. And so that idea of mutual dependency on clean water is really cool. And in Hawaiian culture, there was this word mo'o vai, I believe, mo'o vai mo'o, I think it was. Anyways, the idea of the water that crosses into these different areas is so important to maintain. Like the water is the most paramount important thing. It could cross through different land areas, but maintaining that water is super important. So anyways, sorry.
So we like water.
We love water. Yeah, I think that's pretty good, right?
Yeah, so let's take a look at the other kind of work that we've done so you can maybe get a hint of what you might see when all of this is uncovered. So this is one that we have in Mililani at Town Center of Mililani.
Look how short his hair is.
That was pre-COVID.
Yeah, so proper.
And you want to talk about this one a little bit?
Sure. This one is another piece that kind of deals with the idea of water and agriculture. Mililani is in the Ahupua'a of Waipio, and Waipio means winding waterways. And Mililani, you know, that Mauka region of Mililani is so well known for its agriculture. Historically, it was a place that Hawaiians would go to view the stars because of its high altitude. And it's also placed between the two mountain ranges of the Ko'olau and the Waianae mountain range. And so this concept kind of took in the ideas of the mountains and the two sides. The leaf in the center there, that's a ulu leaf. And the idea of that was that ulu is kind of a symbol of feeding a family or feeding an entire village. You know, one ulu tree could literally feed your family for life. And then obviously we have the kalo in there, the hale, and you can see some of the patterns like Pico patterns, which are the concentric circles. We use that a lot. The he'e pattern, which is, it kind of looks like railroad tracks, like in that rainbow. If you look at that rainbow, there's some like railroad kind of shapes. And the he'e pattern, which we use, it represents the idea of the octopus's suckers, the tentacles, and that idea of grasping. And when you use that in the Hawaiian context, grasping, like grasping knowledge, holding on to information and learning, that's kind of what it represents. So yeah.
Stars for the stargazing there.
Yeah, and stars for the stargazing. All right.
This one we did at the end of last year. And then we actually extended a little bit more to the right at the beginning of this year. So this one is at Ku'ono Marketplace in Kahala. And this one, you can see, actually, I'll go to a little bit of a close up here.
Oh, nice.
There we go.
So
you can see, now the arrows are, okay, knock on wood. Yeah, so you can see water's also a part of this one too. I'll let Matt kind of talk about the story behind it. But
sure.
One thing that goes into kind of our process of how we work together is in the beginning, it all starts with an idea or a concept. So research is really important to us.
Right.
And we had learned about this Hawaiian story of the place. And so we wanted to incorporate that. So that storytelling is
Place-based,
a big part of our work, and exactly being place-based. So even if it is abstract and you won't know the story directly just by looking at it, it informs the colors that we use, the different flora and fauna that you might find in there, the colors, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so just real quick, the story that, see now it's not right. There we go. So this is kind of the establishing shot of the whole mural. It's in Kahala, and Kahala is it's a fish. It's an amberjack, and Kahala is very famous for its very abundant fisheries. So that's one reason why we incorporated it. But there was a specific story that was told about this area regarding Kamehameha III. Kauikeoli III, Kauikeoli was going around the island with his entourage, and in that area of Kahala, what's called Kahala now, Wai'alai, he became very thirsty because there was a pretty dry area. And luckily there was an elderly couple who had been tasked for like the generations, their family had been tasked with keeping and taking care of a particular spring in this area that was hidden. And they were taking care of it just for the sole purpose of if the king ever came through the area, that he could be, taken care of. And so they come forward, they say, hey, come, we show you where the water is. And they unveiled the spring, which was hidden underneath a bunch of pohuehui vines, which are those morning glory vines that you see with the beautiful purple flower, a lot of times on the beach. And it was underneath a stone. And they showed it to him. He was refreshed. His whole party was refreshed, and they were on their way. So it was just a story of kind of the commitment of taking care of the land with the idea of it being used at some point in time, and then that coming to fruition, which was a beautiful story. And so we incorporated that vine, the pohuehui vine, which is those purple flowers with the green leaves, and it sort of arcs through the whole wall. You've also got the water element of those manta ray, the Kahala fish, kind of like coursing through and also intertwining with the vines.
And that references the location of Kahala as being someplace that is
the fishery,
oceanside,
ocean-centric, right?
And that's also the shopping center itself uses that fish, the Kahala fish, as a motif within the space. And then so the water on the bottom,
lower left-hand corner, that's
referencing
the
the spring.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. In that shopping center, they have a bunch of little like water features, and they're sort of referencing the idea of the springs. Anyways, that was a fun one. I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah.
This is another one in that vein of thought where we're taking kind of a story. Go ahead.
Sorry, before you get too far into that, I noticed there was a question from Fred about what the concentric circles mean.
Sure.
Yeah, this is actually a good one to show.
Yeah, let's do that one.
Excellent, perfect.
Yeah, in Hawaiian culture, the Pico is a very common symbol that's used, and the Pico is these concentric circles. And obviously we know we all have a Pico's belly button as well, and they become very symbolic for kind of a place where your na'au, your stomach is. And so in Hawaiian they say like your na'au is where you actually really think from. You think from your stomach, and you kind of like it's almost like the place of power. And the source of your strength is your na'au. And
even in Western culture, we have like the phrasing like, oh, I felt it in my gut.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
So we can relate to that.
Yeah.
And so here in this composition, we have,
so
it is. So we have 3 people.
He said, fire began at 2:15 this afternoon.
There's the news.
But yeah, so
80% contained.
On this one, we've got 3 Pico, and in Hawaiian culture, there's 3 Pico that they consider the most important. Symbolically, they usually say that there's 3 Pico. There's the Pico on your head. There's the Pico on your head is your link to your ancestors, and then the Pico of your stomach connects you to your family, to your mother. And then the Pico of your genitalia, which is the other Pico that Hawaiians would consider sacred, it links you to the future or your offspring. And so in that way, you kind of have all the spectrums of like reality sort of covered by
past,
Pico.
present,
Past,
and
present,
future.
future.
And so that's why we have 3 here in this mural. And then it also relates to where this mural is in Lahaina, Maui. And that's a place where the sunsets are really beautiful on the west side of the island. So to kind of talk about the sun's progression through the sky, we have the sunrise going to the sunset.
So one Pico is the sunrise, and the other Pico on the other side is the sunset, and it courses over the island. Is kind of the concept, is that the sun rises and falls over this island of Maui, and there's a bunch of winds that come through too. So that's part of the.
And the central Pico is right in the middle of that
Kahala. Yeah, the Kahala leaf always is Pico. All right.
Another one that you might have seen in town is the Salt Shopping Center in Kaka'ako. So we did that one there, and you can see there's the gear kind of shapes on the left to reference Kaka'ako's industrial past, and that also uses the uhi that Matt mentioned previously with the octopus tentacles. On the right, you'll see some watercolor panels that we did, and those were actually printed onto sunshade fabric and suspended over the 2nd floor above Moku Restaurant. So if you are dining or in that kind of central area of the Salt Shopping Center, you can look up and you can see those too.
Yeah.
A mural that we recently did was for Kapena School of Music. So Kapena, the band, who you might know, we love their music, and we were so honored to be able to paint a mural for their space. Being such a legendary band here in Hawaii, we wanted to do something that honored their family legacy because they're a family band. So we thought of the composition first in terms of just logistics. It's a square wall. And then we were thinking about family heirlooms in Hawaii, and the Hawaiian quilt is something that's very significant and passed on through generations.
We were thinking of how music is like an heirloom, in that, you know, in terms of kani kapila and playing music together as a family and teaching the next generation how to play. Like, it's something that's done in the living room, and then every generation, or the garage, every generation does it. If you pass it down, it's a gift unto itself. And so juxtaposing the idea of the Hawaiian quilt as an heirloom that you would maybe get passed down from your tutu, and then music
serves as a good compositional framing. And then so we included the different musical instruments. You can see a piano in there, guitar, microphone, and then using the kind of tropical flora and fauna with the ulu leaf, talking about, you know, feeding your family. You can also feed your soul with music. And then the lehua blossoms, and then things like heliconia and other plants that we see here in Hawaii. So we're going to move on to this too. This is part of the school.
Sorry, Roxy, there was a question in the chats, whether you paint directly on the walls or whether you use panels to paint.
That's a great question. We actually paint directly on the wall using house paint that you would normally, you know, just kind of use interior house paint.
The high quality stuff.
We use high quality things so that it resists fading, stain blocking, easy to clean.
It's a latex, high grade interior for an interior, water. And then exterior, you use an exterior paint, house paint. So
that's a great question. You could paint on panels and then nail that in if for some reason it needs to be kind of like a temporary installation. And we have done that for a couple like gallery or museum shows where it needs to be, you know, changed over a certain amount of time. But if it's an outdoor wall or like an indoor commercial space, we'll just paint directly on the wall. This is their great kind of slogan for their school: be yourself, believe in yourself, and play loud. And when we heard that, we told them, like, this has to be a mural on the wall, so kids feel, you know, that comfort where they can be themselves and they have a safe space where they can play loud and no one's going to tell them to quiet down.
Speaking of play loud, I'm going to go close the door. Kaimana's making so much noise.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
I think our kiddo's getting excited about the movie next door. And that the florals kind of lead us into our next style, which is more of our architectural, highly detailed illustration and mural work. So this is an illustration that we did playing off the idea of a lay stand canoe. We thought of how we just love this idea of the lay stand in Hawaii and how it's just something that when you have an event to celebrate, you always kind of go out and get a lei, and how cool that would be to combine that, you know, with something in the ocean. So in our work, we like to have fun little details that really make you feel like you're in the space. We purposely don't put characters in our dwellings because we want you to feel like that's your place, or you can imagine you and your friends or you and your family being in there. So as we show you different images, you'll notice that
what's cool about this one is, okay, you've got your surfboard, you've got the different types of lei that are being sold, the flowers. If you read the little signage there, it's got pikake, plumeria, ilima, orchid. And then there's oranges on the very top. There's an orange tree. And that was a little bit of a joke on our part because when you're at sea, citrus is the best way to stave off scurvy.
So we had to put a citrus in there.
Nodding his head. He's
right?
Like, yeah, that's right. Scurvy's.
I have to think of logistics.
Scurvy's a killer.
Yeah, if you're out there, you're the one working the lei stand. You know,
that's right. You gotta have your citrus.
Stay hydrated and have your citrus.
And your little coffee in the corner there. Which
yeah,
I'm gonna take a sip of right now.
We do like to hint at inhabitation or people being in the space by putting little props like a coffee mug or some slippers you'll see on the side there by the little ladder, the surfboard.
He or she just jumped in the water and is paddling out to the lineup right now. So you just missed them.
Yeah, they're taking a surf break.
Yeah, surf break. All right. Oh, speaking of surf break, here's another one.
Yeah, this one we call the Surf and Science Research Outpost. So the idea is that you're some kind of ocean scientist who works here at this station. But we like to think of what kind of materials might be used in a place like this. And so there happens to be a pirate ship that has run aground and then reused for this installation.
Yeah, you have to kind of look at it upside down maybe, but there's a pirate ship that's been bisected and inverted and it serves as the roof structure.
So you can see there's a skate ramp there so that you can have some skateboarding breaks. And then above it, the steering wheel of the pirate ship and the empty rum bottles have been used as a chandelier and lighting device.
Maybe.
And then to the left, we can see water catchment, kind of water storage that's connected to like an aquaponics system that may or may not be like coral research as well.
We were kind of thinking that maybe what they do is they study coral reefs and they're trying to mitigate coral bleaching by studying it, and this was the best place for them to do it. Their pylons are kind of like an artificial reef already, and then you've got solar panels on the roof there which power the whole center, and then on the left hand side you'll see like two Hawaiian style, hokulea style sails which are water catchment. So that's where the water for that yellow water tank gets siphoned from. And
the green roof.
Yeah, you've got a greenhouse, and then you've got a green roof. We oftentimes put in some sort of permaculture or aquaponics or living wall sort of scenario, because we have to think about, okay, you're living on this place. What do you need to do to have fun? We got our skateboards, we got our surfboards. What do you need to do to have power? You got your solar panels, you got your wind power, and what do you need to do to eat? You got to have your plants.
Have to have your bases covered.
Your salad needs covered.
And then on the left you'll see there's a swing, and then on the right you'll see a deep sea submersible. So that way you can go out on deeper, longer range missions. And we joke that well, on the continent there's a pretty famous submersible called Alvin. So we joke that this is his Hawaiian cousin, Kimo. Yeah. So if you looked real close, you would see that Kimo is painted on the side of the submersible there.
Kimo would go. All right. So Boombox Treehouse.
So this is the original illustration that we did, that we then used to paint several murals of this actually in different places. We have the Boombox mural that's on Ward. We also have one that is inside the Mililani Hotel in Waikiki. And then we painted one in Worcester, Massachusetts on the side of a big auditorium. That was, I
Yeah.
think, the largest mural we've ever
That was
done
a
is there.
big, scary mural.
So this has been done on different scales.
Yeah.
The print of this is actually for sale in the Honolulu Museum of Art gift shop, if you do like
can,
this one.
and you can see the details. This one has a lot of like cool throwbacks to 80s fun culture. You've got this like bar that's in the tape deck area, which is funny because it's actually a tape deck on the deck.
The patio deck.
Yeah, the bar is shaped like a cassette tape. It's called the mixtape. So
Well,
the bar.
imagine it being, the mixtape is a place where you can get any mixed drink of
Oh,
choice.
true.
So it might be a smoothie, it might be a margarita,
Might
you
be a
know, everyone has
alcoholic-
their own mixtape, you
It's-
know, so everyone has their own
Yeah.
drink of
It
choice.
could be alcoholic shave ice.
Who knows?
And then you've also got a little what's that arcade game in the right hand side boom speaker, and on the walls there you'll see little medic kits, because
You can see the little red crosses.
yeah, little medic kits, because the assumption is that if you're going to live in a treehouse that has lofted half pipe skate ramps and not any, I don't see any railings on top, it's really dangerous.
So you might get hurt
You assume there's going to be some
and you might need some
injuries,
first aid kits. So we
probably.
have one conveniently located
Yeah.
in each side of
Each
those
side.
skate ramps there.
yes band-aids for broken bones.
So when we're designing these tree houses, we look at the structure
Mhm.
or the kind of sculpture form of what we're trying to mimic.
Right.
So looking at different pictures of boom boxes, seeing how we can interpret the architectural kind of features of the object into
Right.
things that make sense for a place that you're going to live in. So if you look kind of that top middle area, you'll see the solar panels, and that would be kind of where that radio dial would be.
Yeah.
So when you did the radio tuner, you would see that
Tuner.
it move across. And then at the top where you would have the volume knobs and the tuner knobs and things like that, those are where our water catchment areas are.
Yep.
And the buttons where you would have the play, rewind, stop, record.
Yeah.
Those buttons have been turned into
irrigation lines
boxes, the
and
little plant
planter
boxes.
Yeah.
And then the handle for the boom box is kind of like
Little
this
deck.
viewing deck on the top
And
there.
chimneys.
And then little chimneys.
There you go.
We figure this is in the woods somewhere in
Yes.
the mountains.
Yeah, that's our Pacific Northwest.
Setting. And then this one is actually in Nashville, Tennessee. And we imagined this as the band wagon that got retired and put up into the trees.
Yeah, the tour bus.
Yeah, kind of like the touring van, because Nashville is such a center for music.
Yeah.
But hey, even if it's not on the road, it can still be a place where you can jam with your friends.
Yeah.
So we've got the skate ramp on top, like we usually do, the wooden wave there.
Mhm.
And then we've got the electric guitar, the drum
Drums.
set, microphone.
Yeah.
We've got the swing to the right, so you can take in the view and
Yeah.
relax there, and a couple of potted plants. So we do travel to paint murals in different places, and then we try to think of the location that we're in and how we can kind of bring the fun of that place into a different kind of surprising
Yeah.
setting.
This one in particular, they were doing a bar restaurant theme that was based on Hawaii.
Mhm.
And so it was really nice that Michelle, who was the interior designer lead on this project, she was like, well, let's bring in some Hawaii artists. You want Hawaii? Like, here's some Hawaii artists, some Hawaiians. And so it was really, really great to have that experience, and we appreciated. It was a beautiful place. It was super fun. We enjoyed it, and we got to bring a little bit of our style there,
and bringing kind of the aloha shirts.
Oh, the aloha
motif
print.
with the aloha print on the left there.
yeah.
So we did paint all of that together.
Oh, is this
Okay, so this is a before, and then you'll see the after in
ready
a
for the
second.
after? Okay, and
So wait,
Oh, sorry.
no. You don't need
So
to jump
excited.
ahead. He's so excited. So one thing that we do, a little tradition of ours, is we do a wall hug. So just to give the wall some good energy before we get the project started, we give
Very
the wall a
important.
hug.
No skipping that.
No
That's true.
skipping that. It's an important step.
Yeah.
And then that way it also gives scale to the wall that we're doing
Yeah.
in a photo. So this is the before.
It's always Roxy.
And it's always me starting it off. And then at the end, we've started to do a wall hug at the end with Matt hugging the wall.
I'm usually like laying down because we're so tired.
In front of the wall.
I'm like a floor hug.
That is true. Actually, we do have a lot of floor hugs.
That's the floor hug and the wall hug. All right, let's see it. There we go.
So this is
go.
the after.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Boom. Let's go. Oh, isn't that working now?
Oh, and it's stuck. So it wants us to show you this. So on the left, this is the mural that we have in San Jose, California, and this is in Japantown. So we did a treehouse in the shape of a samurai helmet. And this was really fun to do because we could look at Japanese architecture and bring that into the space. So at the top there, we have a
Moon
Japanese tea garden with the moon bridge
Mhm.
and the shoji screen. And that was for kind of the surrounding part of the garden, as well as the kind of flares coming off of the helmet, and the solar panels also being part of that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool that we got to look into costume design as part of this, which is really fun.
Yeah.
And then also the tile that became kind
Yeah.
of like that mustache
Yeah, the
shape
style.
with the nose. Lanterns became the eyes. We did a sand garden, kind of like a little meditation
Zen garden,
space.
yep.
Yeah.
Right there below the blue roof, and then you gotta
And that's part of the jaw is the
right,
skate ramp.
this the draw. Yeah, exactly.
And because this was actually on the side of a little eatery that sold mochi ice cream, so you can't see in this view, but there's a little table
Mhm.
with some tea and then a little plate of mochi ice cream. So just kind of a fun nod to the location.
Yeah. This was in Japantown. Did we mention that? We
Mhm.
did. Yeah, and that
Yeah.
was a cool, that was a really fun project.
And then on the top right is a mural that's in Wailuku, Maui, and then the bottom right is in Worcester, Massachusetts. So that's the biggest boombox.
big one. Yeah.
We also like to play on pop culture. So this is a mural that was part of the Powell Mural Festival. It's no longer up because the walls get painted over every year, but this was across from the BJ Penn Gym.
Mhm.
And we took a quote from Star Wars saying, "Together we can rule the galaxy." And this is Darth Vader actually trying to convince Luke to join the dark side, saying like, "Together we can rule," right? But we decided it would be kind of fun to turn it around, where this is a Darth Vader helmet shaped treehouse, and instead it's like, "Together, all of us on Earth, we can rule the
Put a positive
galaxy
spin
in a
on it.
positive, sustainable way."
Yeah, and actually with this one and a lot of our pieces, we sort of build a little backstory. And there's a full narrative that should we explain it kind of
Just
quickly?
really quickly.
Okay, really quickly. So yeah, so the idea behind this one was that Darth Vader, okay,
Alternate ending.
He actually faked his death because he was getting so stressed out with,
It's a stressful job being
I
like
mean, having to be
the most evil person in the
right, and always
galaxy.
conquering. It's so stressful. And at the end there, he has this like great turn of heart with his son, and he's just like, you know what? I'm gonna go let you guys take care of the galaxy. It's in good hands or hand. And I'm gonna go off to this planet far, far away, and I'm gonna build a
I'm gonna retire.
treehouse. I'm gonna retire, and I hang up my cape.
So there's a
And
clothesline
there's actually
with his
cape.
cape drying on
I
it.
hang up my cape, and I'm gonna farm. I'm gonna break dance because I love break dancing. So that's why there's the little checkered break dancing place down there at the bottom with a Death Star disco ball.
Mhm.
I'm gonna skateboard, and I'm gonna have solar power, and I'm just gonna look at the stars instead of
So his prized possession at the top is
Yeah.
a big telescope where he can just relax, lay back, and look at the stars without feeling the need to conquer
Mhm.
any of them.
yeah, just appreciate it for its beauty. So that's the story of Darth.
Yeah, and so you
Oh,
can
there
see
you
it
go.
a little bit better here,
See, this is the
actually.
print version. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the illustration
Mhm.
version where we have prints of these. So you can see the details a little bit easier.
And then the Stormtrooper one has a similar story too, where they're after the Empire falls, the Stormtroopers are kind of like, they're all clones, and so they're kind of like,
They're very efficient.
we're very efficient, but we all just kind of we don't
have no
purpose.
motivation.
Yeah, what do we do now? And they're like, I got it. Let's create a whole co-op of these tree houses that teach kids how to skateboard safely and how to farm. And that's what their mission is.
So they're
now.
basically co-ops and community centers where they garden and the community can come and learn
Yes.
organic, fermenting and fertilizing and all kinds
right.
of stuff.
Yeah, soil remediation
There you go.
and soul remediation as well.
So yeah, so that's our treehouse style kind of up until now. And this is our most current mural, which Sean had mentioned is at the Bishop Museum. So with the Bishop Museum being a research institution and studying things like endemic wildlife, we wanted to touch upon that with the pueo, which is the Hawaiian owl. So we have a treehouse community here in the shape of the owl, where the eyes are the lanterns there. There's a skate ramp on top. The wings are the solar panels, green roofs on the side. I'll show you some details here so you can see things up close.
And this is a good, this was such a fun project to, again, take some sort of image, some sort of structure, or like whether it's a helmet or an animal, and sort of figure out a way to architecturally build it, right? And so if you look at the shoulder of the wing shoulder, it's that swooping, swooped, curved architectural home. Is it not going back? Oh.
There you go.
Anyways, yeah. And then the wingtips, the feather wingtips are the solar panels and the slides. And so it's such a fun project to sort of go full on into. I have such a it's so difficult to scroll now. It wants to go like 3 steps ahead. How are we on time? We're good?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Sorry. Yeah. Should we go into this one a little more then?
Well, actually, I was going to open it up for questions.
Yeah,
if people want to know more, we can talk about that. Or if there were other questions, we can touch upon that. I saw in the chat that someone asked if our son knows what a boombox is, and no, he does not. He knows what an iPad is.
I think my generation is the cutoff. Yeah, like I think a lot of kids don't. I mean, older kids don't even know.
Yeah.
What is that thing?
We're the oldest millennials, is where we stand. So we still had boomboxes and cassette tape Walkmans when we were kids.
Maybe a good conversation piece on this one is sort of to show what our working process is like. A question would be like, well, how do you guys divide up the labor on a mural like this? And so typically what happens between Roxy and I is we have a single sketchbook that will add ideas, whether they're just notes, like written notes, or little quick thumbnails. And
thumbnail sketches,
right? Sorry. And that will be sort of the seeding area, like where we'll get an idea and it'll stay there for a while.
It's the brain bank.
Yeah, it'll sort of like eventually germinate into something more refined.
Or not,
right? And that's kind of the beauty of the process, is we're always adding ideas to the sketchbook. And a while ago, we had thought of the idea of an owl treehouse. And I even did, and I usually do the sketches, the first round of sketches. I even did an initial sketch of it, but it looked, in my opinion and in our opinion, it was a little too goofy. Like it kind of had a cartoon look, and owls, you know, they can be really cute and cuddly and kind of goofy looking. And this one, it lacked the gravitas that I thought of when I think of a bird of prey or a pueo. I think of like something that's like, you know, like it's got that strength and aggressiveness.
Just a little bit more contemplative than goofy.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. And so it just sat there in the sketchbook for years. Yeah. And then this opportunity came along with the Bishop Museum, and we're kind of going back and
forth. We had a completely different idea.
So glad we didn't do that one though.
Leading up, I think we knew about this show for almost a year, and I think in the last month before the show, we changed our idea.
And it was just like, okay, let's do the owl, and we started sketching it out, and it's one of those things we always say, like, you trust the process. You work from a sketch, and you just keep working it until it stops looking goofy. And it eventually will. Like, you can pretty much work through a lot of creative problems, but just keep continuing to work on it. And so that's what happened with this one. It slowly started, okay, we're looking at it. I'm sending her pictures over the phone, like when we're in separate places. Yeah, what do you think? You know, oh, I like that. And for example, in that shoulder area of the owl, there's that house that's kind of got like the dimensional arcs and beams, and it's very
of a shoulder.
Yeah, it's got this interesting design to it. And the backstory on that is initially I had drawn a very simple but well-drawn shed
He
style.
spent a lot of time on it.
Yeah, a monoslope roof. Like
And I
architecturally,
came and-
it was sturdy, but it was kind of boring.
And I nixed it.
And I showed it to Roxy. I was kind of proud of like where the whole owl was going. And she just looked at the little house. She was like,
Nope.
yeah, and I was really kind of,
But he had a sketch similar to this actually in thumbnail before even that one. But he went full on in a different
I
direction.
guess.
And I was
just-
like, bring it back to that first
I just remember
sketch.
the
Why'd you go to
heartbreak.
this one?
I remember the heartbreak of her telling me, and I was like, oh, I worked so hard on that.
I'm
roof."
glad you're at step 10, but let's go back
Right.
to step 2.
And that's how it works. Is like, I will have a gut reaction, but then I usually know that there's something there, and I'll kind of like begrudgingly, okay, I'll think about it. And then I start seeing it and I'm like, oh man, yeah, this is an opportunity to really kind of explore some more
Architecture.
dynamicness.
Dynamism in those. I think that works.
That sounds good.
But I think to go back to process, to reel it back. So we have our sketchbook. We're both idea people. I love ideas. I usually sketch in words, like phrases. He sketches actual things. But yeah, so we'll start with the idea and then he'll kind of go to town. I trust him as being the architectural drawer that he is. If we both decide like, okay, this is the direction we're going to go in. Okay, let's do the owl. I kind of back off then and I let him kind of figure that out. And that's what we've learned over the years is I don't need to be there to see the first iteration of whatever's happening. I trust he's going to work out some logistical things and then I'll come in and say like, okay, I like what's going on there. Like, what do you think? Like it needs to be more fun. Like we need a slide or we need a swing or, you know, like let's up the fun factor on this. Let's do something here. Or he'll come with a specific problem and say, you know, I don't know what we should put in this area. So then we'll brainstorm together, figure out what goes there. Then he'll go back to drawing. So I don't come into the drawing at all. And that's one thing that we've kind of figured out is that I don't need to be part of that process where I can work more on like project management, scheduling, kind of the overall big picture of our business.
Yeah, definitely important.
and then I just, it's almost like an art director. I just kind of come back for little hits or perspective here and there. And then
curate it.
Yeah, because he's amazing at what he does. And so I'm not going to try and stifle that. Thanks.
It works.
And then, so when I come in will be when the drawing is finished and it's time to talk about color. And then that's when he'll kind of let me take over. And then I'm the one who kind of lays out where I think all the color should go. And then depending on the project, if we have time, he'll go in on the iPad and actually drop in the color sketch wise. So when it's time to come to a wall, our colors are pretty much figured out and it's not something that we're having to do on the fly.
Images laid out, sketch.
Yeah, although we have worked together long enough that sometimes we don't have any colors laid out on the iPad and we're completely comfortable with that too. We know that we'll figure it out. Some things that are pretty intuitive is that, you know, the branches and the trees are going to be some kind of brown or gray, and then the leaves are going to be some shades of green. So there are some things that are already established that help to set certain colors in motion, which gives us a certain level of comfort. Like the solar panels are going to be blue, that kind of thing. Why this one is a night scene is we knew we had a limited amount of time to paint this wall. So with a limited installation time, there has to be something that gets cut, right? And we knew that it wasn't the detail that we wanted to cut on this one. Yeah, we wanted the detail to be high. So that means we can't have a zillion colors that we're working with, right? So we decided to do a night scene so that it would kind of have a blue scale. And we also thought that would lend to kind of the atmospheric quality of it. And when we think of an owl, we usually picture an owl at night. So
also in terms of color theory or in terms of creating a cohesive image, if you had a whole like swatch of colors going on, like a orange slide and a red house and brown this and that, you know, it actually distracts from form in this example. So the form is, and we did that with Darth Vader and the Stormtrooper as well. When you're really trying to focus on the sculpture of the object, color takes a backseat in terms of like diversity of color, and it becomes more about shades, hues, and depth, creating depth. So monochromatic.
And we really want our paintings to be something that when you see them from far away, you see the whole form and you see what it is, but then as you get closer, you just find more and more things to look at. So that's what people will tell us when they see our walls, is that they either spend a lot of time standing there just trying to find all the things in there, or they have to come back and then they'll find new things every time that they come back, which makes it really fun.
Roxy, Matt, can I ask you for a clarification? Somebody just asked a question. When you say sketchbook, do you mean physical sketchbook or digital sketching? Do you work mostly in like paper copy when you're planning things out, or is it mostly digital?
The initial ideas usually go in our physical sketchbook, just those kind of seeds. But as soon as it jumps into something that we're thinking might actually become a painting or a print, I'm losing my voice.
I'll take over.
Then it jumps straight to the iPad.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting, the transition that just in the last maybe 2 years that we've gone through, where a majority of our sketches were in a sketchbook, and then you would scan it, and then maybe you could digitize some aspects of it. But now a lot more is happening for us on the iPad, and specifically with programs like Procreate or Fresco through Adobe. It's just so easy to iterate, to share the image, whether you're working with clients or if we have to clear an image with, say, like the museum or the client, right? You know, you can send it seamlessly. So it's really beautiful. But we do recognize that with that is a loss of some of the tactileness that we grew up with, right? We still come back to that page and we feel that this scritch of the pencil on the paper and the resistance of the lead on fiber, and you're like, this is what I love.
I think that's why the first ideas still go into a physical sketchbook.
We're holding on to
because
that.
There's something about it that feels like it puts you in a more thoughtful or imaginative space. Maybe it's a placebo effect, but it still feels like it works for us.
I will actually throw this one back to when we were in college. My professor, Charles Cohen, who's an amazing printmaker, a wonderful teacher, professor, and he brought out his sketchbooks one day to the whole class, and just brought out all his sketchbooks and all the moleskins. And he told us, he said, this is the most important body of work that I have. Not the pieces that were in the shows, not the framed art, not the things that have sold. It's the ideas, even if they're unformed or unrealized. These are the things that I think of as the most precious part of my process. And I think I always remember that story, and it's something that is kind of moving for me, because it is a beautiful thing to have the analog memory of our work.
Yeah, it resonates, right? It's kind of the genesis of things.
Shall we scoot?
Yeah, well, I don't know if there are other questions.
We should check.
I don't want to pass over if someone has. Thanks.
I think maybe we'll make this the last question. There was one more question in the chats as to whether you ever do individual projects where you get tired of each other and go on and do something on your own, or whether all the projects you're doing are all for Wood and Wave jointly.
Right. You know, it kind of depends. I think our individual projects end up being things that aren't art. So for me, I teach and I mentor up and coming artists, or I formally teach for Hawaii Technology Academy in entrepreneurship and marketing.
And you love doing that.
And I love
stuff.
teaching.
Yeah,
I've been teaching for a long time. So that's not something I'm going to let go of. So that's kind of the other side of my life that I still find to be very fulfilling. And then right now we're building a house, so that's Matt's project. Like, literally, we are the ones building the house.
So I've got all this is the primer and the color.
Yeah. Paint primer.
Did you take any ideas from your tree houses to try to work them into your actual physical house?
Yeah, it looks like an owl. We had a real good time getting it permitted. Took 6 years. So. No, but actually, I really love, on the art end, I really love figurative work, and you don't see a lot of that in any of these styles, but that's something I love, and I always encourage artists, young artists, to not scrimp on figure drawing. It's I think the most foundational, even if you're not drawing figures, like the way that you understand form, volume, articulation, foreshortening. All that stuff is the foundation is laid in good figure drawing. So I love that. I always have loved figure drawing. Yes.
Oh, we have another question.
Susan. Oh, I think you might be muted. I think you're muted. Oh,
Well, she's maybe figuring that out. I did see.
Yes.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. I wanted to hear more about the end process. Once you've got the final drawing and everybody's approved it, how do you get this onto the wall? Do you, I noticed once you measuring, so I'm sure you do that. But how do you do it? You can blow it up certainly, but tell us about that process.
sure.
Yeah, it's pretty simple actually.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so we do all the detail out like you saw, let's say for the Darth Vader one in the illustration, you can see how much detail is in that Darth Vader image. So we have that with the high contrast of the line work against the white background. And then we can then go with a projector and project that illustration onto the wall. And then we'll spend a whole day just lining everything out in pencil.
Yeah, it's the quickest way to get a line. And oftentimes murals are very time sensitive. You're renting scaffolding or lifts by the day. So that's the fastest, easiest way oftentimes. But there are bigger walls sometimes where you've got to grid it out because a projector won't work. And there's ways of doing that are pretty quick as well.
Yeah, luckily so far we've been just in logistically safe locations where we could project from across the street or a different building, or there's DC we had some fun. Sketchy alleys that we've had to be in late at night to project.
That was a fun
but
one.
Yeah, it still takes hours to draw it on the wall, but at least we can get the accuracy of the perspective and things like that way.
Perspective is the name. It's very difficult.
So you draw it on the wall while you've got the projector on, and then put your line.
Exactly. Yeah, so we're both there with pencils, kind of like shielding the light so we can see the line, and then kind of bringing it back.
And then it becomes just coloring after that. It's like, okay,
right.
You know where a line.
Once you have the lines,
Yeah,
that's just pencil line too, so it's sometimes hard to see.
What's the average time for putting it on the wall once you have the sketch?
Once we have the sketch, I'd say our average mural takes 10 to 14 days is generally our timeline. Yeah, but it does depend on which style we're doing and then the size of the wall. I mean, there's all kinds of factors. The one thing is actually the texture of the wall. If it's on brick, you know, that just soaks up paint so much, and it's just ridiculous how little you can get done in a day if you're painting on brick. It just eats up the brush, you know. It like the texture of the wall literally takes brush away.
That's where you'd probably move to aerosol, which we generally don't work in aerosol, but in certain scenarios.
So Worcester, Massachusetts, with that very large boombox, that was the first time we'd ever done aerosol. So we were there. Spray paint actually has different tips that you can put on the cans to adjust the different widths or the speed at which the paint comes out of the can. So we had pizza boxes, we had cardboard that we were testing out the different tips on the cardboard before we'd apply it to the wall. So that was a very steep learning curve where we had a week to paint this very large wall and we had never used spray paint before, and we just made it happen. It's that example of just saying yes and figuring it out on the fly.
Do you put a background color or base on it to kind of absorb some of the?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, so priming the wall with just that exterior house paint, giving it a solid coat helps a ton. Yeah. Especially when it's that brick.
Yeah,
that's great. It's such fun.
Thanks.
What's the durable life of one of your outdoor murals?
It's pretty good, and think of it in terms of
outdoor life.
Outdoor life of a mural.
Oh yeah, the paint that we used is the highest grade exterior house paint, which is rated at least for 25 years. They say lifetime on the can.
Right.
So
if you put a semi-gloss, it extends that. It also depends on a mural in Hilo facing the wind
and the rain
is different from one in Kaka'ako facing the shade. So it depends. We've had murals that we've had to touch up, but usually they're like the salt one is still going strong, and that's that one's probably the longest one we've had in Kaka'ako.
Yeah.
So do you mix your own colors of these spot paints?
Often.
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
We'll get an array of colors because we have so many different items in there and everything has a light side and a dark side.
Mhm.
So we might have all the main colors mixed, but then we're gonna have to add white or add some gray to either lighten it up or darken it down, that kind of thing.
That's where, yeah.
We'll try to get
she's-
the most saturated version of that
Yeah.
color, and then we can work
Tint
out
it,
the hues,
right.
either tinting it or shading it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's my job. To figure out the rainbow that we start with.
I love it. I can just say, okay, it's up to you. Get the line work done.
I'm the one at Home
you
Depot
go.
picking out the paint swatches. He goes and gets the rollers and everything else that we need, and I'm just standing in front of all those swatches with the sketch and just picking out, 20 different
I don't know, you're the color
little
expert.
chips. Yeah. Figuring out the quantities,
Yeah.
getting the shades.
No, it's stressful.
That kind of thing.
I don't do it.
I love it, so it's not that stressful for me.
Okay,
That's the beauty of having a team, right? You delegate the things you don't want to do.
that's right.
We just need our son when he's older to become our accountant and do all the, I'll
Mhm.
hand over more project management skills to him, emails, that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
But actually, maybe we can end on this is, we did have,
Oh, does it move? You gotta do the double finger.
oh, okay, he's
Oh.
got the thing. Oh, we
We
did
have
have a
that.
slide.
Ah,
Just really quickly. So Matt was on the TV show Making It with Amy Poehler and Nick Offerman on NBC. So that was just, if he
In-
looks familiar,
in his-
maybe.
in his civilized days, look at his nice haircut. He's got.
Yeah, so just how artists can be diverse in their interests.
Mhm.
He likes working with his hands as well. So he was able to do some 3D things
Mhm.
being part of the show.
Oh, there's a samurai. Well, that was a tortoise house.
So the challenge for this episode was that they had to build
Mhm.
a dwelling for a pet, either real or imagined.
Mhm.
And so he built this samurai training
Yeah, and
area
because,
and home for,
right, because
for a tortoise.
I growing up, I loved Ninja Turtles. We both did actually. But because it was on an NBC like syndicated show,
Hi, buddy. You can't say Teenage Mutant Ninja
we
Turtles.
couldn't say Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, so I went with
buddy.
the tortoise. Want to say hi?
So this is just a tortoise that's a martial arts enthusiast. Kung
Kung
Fu.
Okay.
We call our kid Tiny Boss. So he's here. You want to say hi to everybody? We can say hi.
Okay.
So this is just kind of shots of us in our different areas. So this is our art studio in Kaka'ako. Matt skating with our kiddo here. And then the group photo of us with our little family at the bottom, you'll see we're kind of in a corner. And this is actually our son's mural.
That's his first.
His
Out-
first mural of
public
many,
mural.
maybe. Not intentional on our part, but if you look on the left, you'll see this is us painting our Boombox mural.
Yeah,
And on the
we're on
bottom,
that scissors
where
lift.
those, yes, you'll see Matt there on the scissors lift. On the bottom, you'll see those stripes, those colorful stripes, and you'll see these little alcoves. And that
Right.
alcove is like
Fire
the door to a fire exit.
Yeah.
And there's a red rectangle. And that was started by our kiddo when he came to visit us at the wall one day. He's used to visiting our job sites, like visit mommy and daddy at work, so my dad had brought him by to say hi. My dad was watching him that day. And we were there talking to my dad and someone else who had stopped by the wall. And our son Kai picked up a roller that was being used to paint the stripe and started painting this alcove. And our friend took a picture real quick of him doing it. So you see him painting it. And so we were surprised. But what's great about the Powwow Mural Festival is it's really like a family-friendly event. And we knew that if we painted it in a more intentional kind of way that it would likely be left up. So what I did is I actually taped off the rectangle and then we just let him paint the rectangle red. And then the next day I had him come back and I'd arranged a bunch of little pots of color and let him just kind of go to town. And so he was able to kind of do
So
his
fun.
abstract expressionism on the wall. That's all him. And so we just kind of painted out this rectangle. I painted the background kind of a turquoise color to give it a little bit more of a clean backdrop because it was just kind of a dingy gray.
Yeah.
And then I lettered "Never Give Up" because at the time it was his favorite children's book, that
Yeah.
was the phrase that was
Right.
repeated throughout the book, and he was always kind of running
We
around yelling,
asked
never
him,
give up.
yeah, we asked him like, what do you want to write?
What do you want to write?
And that's what he said, never give up. And he's so proud of that mural. It's still there. We drive by it and we go, where's your mural, buddy? And he's like, looks for it there.
He's like, that's my wall.
And people have taken pictures with it, and it's a really cool story because it started with, we turned around, like literally a second went, and he just ran and grabbed the roller. He always sees us working, and then he's just like buffing out the wall, and we just turned just in time to see the whole wall go red. And we're like, oh, okay, well, I guess he's doing.
And he's
it
like,
now.
oh my God, do we need to paint that over? I'm like, no, we're not painting it over. We're making it cooler.
Oh, that's so good. It's so
Yeah.
good. Anyways,
So yeah,
that's
that way
funny.
kids can see, that's the thing I think for us is
Mhm.
if we had known mural painting was something that you could do when we were younger,
Yeah. Should turn on
we
light.
would have probably pursued it over, but we just didn't know that that was even something you could do.
Right.
So that's what we really love about being able to paint murals, is for people to just kind of be going in their everyday life or visiting places like a museum and being able to see work on a large scale where it becomes kind of environmental, where you get immersed in it.
Mhm.
And then Kai seeing the murals that we do, it's just what he knows our job is. So when we say, oh, we're going into town, you have to stay with Tutu today,
Yeah.
he's like, oh, where's the mural this time? Like he
Yeah.
just knows that that's our job.
Yeah,
And
that's
so it's so cool,
normal
I think, to see blank walls now and know that you can add some color to them. And we're just really lucky that that's our job.
And now all of the walls in our house are in danger of being murals from handprints everywhere, which will be great.
Yeah, we're letting him paint his own room.
Yes.
That's a given.
Yeah.
And it's one less thing that we have to paint
Yeah.
in our house. So he can go for it.
Maybe pass the thing so we can turn a light. It's about to go.
Oh,
dark.
it's getting a little
Yeah.
dark.
But yeah, I think that's was that the last slide?
Yep.
All right. Never give up, people.
Never give up.
Never give up. It's a good one to end on.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you,
us.
guys.
Entertaining.
It's awesome being here.
Welcome.
We hope you guys enjoy the murals around town and visit the museum so you can take off a piece of
Yes.
vinyl.
A piece of history.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. If
Bishop
you have not
Museum.
stopped by, go do that.
Yeah, the Bishop Museum piece will be up, I believe, until September 19th. And then the Honolulu Museum piece will be up until the end of the year. So there's
January 2nd. Yep.
Yeah. So that's gonna fly by sooner than later. Like we're already middle of August.
quickly.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Pretty quick.
It's true.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again to Sean and Roxy and Matt and to everybody who joined us tonight. Yes, be sure you go to Bishop and come by the Honolulu Museum of Art as well. And we will see you soon. Have a good night, everybody.